What makes pay per lead such a dangerous business model is not only because you have great cash flow. I mean, you sell meta leads for 50 bucks and you turn it into 100 bucks directly, right? It's such a clean business because you sell data and everything is tracked down to a T. Because if your customers make $2 out of your leads, right, and they put $1 in, then they're happy and will always continue buying, which is why marketing VF, one of the largest pay-per-lead companies in the United Kingdom, right, that generated 145 million pounds, so that would be 170 million dollars ish, with a gross profit of around 80 million dollars, actually acquired by private equity. Because this is some empire building level shit of analysis that we're going to be talking about, right? So not specifically small fish, because they have 400 employees, right? And it is insane. Even though their net profit might only be around 10 million, they're structured in a way where they don't even want to make profit. Their goal is to basically become a larger company because they're owned by private equity. Private equity bought them up. And private equity wants to grow the company to 3 to 5 times the size and sell it off for a multiple valuation, maybe 6, 7 times more, and make massive money after 5 or 6 years, right? So think of them pouring all of this money in just to grow the company and then sell it off at a later time. And specifically, if we take a look at their revenue, right, it says like 145. The cost of sales, which is obviously the ad spend, right, is like 84 million pounds of ad spend, which is still very, very decent. Their gross profit is 60 million pounds, right? Admin, employee costs, and other stuff add up, right? So here you can see the entire breakdown, and even by each market, because they haven't even only done business in the UK. They also have diversified to other countries like North America, Europe, Asia Pacific, Middle East, and Latin America, which is kind of crazy. They have a variety of brands, the biggest one being tech.co. And what's really interesting is you feel like that they're just a consumer facing, blog post site, right? There's nothing about this, that makes it such valuable brand. But you're completely wrong, because all of these blog post sites are basically pay per lead sites, right? So basically they are disguising themselves as a trustworthy comparison provider, right? They're basically analyzing these different platforms, and then once you click on this button, right, they essentially collect your data, or you are entering a quiz funnel, where you get matched to a different company. And on the back end, there are a lot of corporate companies in business loans, in different tech verticals, that are buying this information up, right? First name, last name, email, as well as phone number, because those lead information they can feed to their call center that can basically make 10 leads into one customer, right? So imagine 10 people filling out this form, and that information is sent via an API, which is basically how machines or software talks to each other, right? That information is sent via this language basically to their customer relationship management tool, and their Wolf of Wall Street call center just dials them up and they turn those leads into customers. Now, this is the form of marketing that nobody ever talks about, because it's very like unsexy. It's like boring ass website, right? But nonetheless, the numbers don't lie. Some of the biggest marketing companies on the whole world are pay per lead companies, right? And I'm glad you found this channel, because this is some niche level sauce that you won't be getting anywhere else. You can check out my main channel as well. It's just my name without the daily lessons. And specifically, here's where I share like more like in-depth sauce for the ones that have an attention span, right? And specifically here you can see that they have like editors, writers, logistics editors. Everything is like, all of this builds trust. If you have valid editors, with a LinkedIn profile, right? You have an X establishment, a following, you have blog posts, you've been doing over 10 years, right? A team of writers, you're actual humans doing the site, then you build trust with Google. And that trust can be monetized by selling lead information, right? Because if you go into the terms and policy, you understand that they're owned by Marketing VF, right? And it is a marketing company, like their name says. And they own a bunch of other brands like Go Wizard, Expert Reviews, Website Builder, Experts, right? All of these brands are like consumer facing, and they're facing B2B services, like professional services, right? This is super useful, super high value lead. These lead data, like one customer information, first name, last name, email, and phone number, can be sold for $200, because if 10 out of these leads convert into a customer for the CRM software, right? That costs like that basically makes like $5,000 a year, right? Imagine buying 10 leads for $200, and one of those leads turn to a customer. Okay, your customer acquisition cost is $2,000, but you make $5,000 per year, so it's completely worth it for you. And that customer obviously sticks with you if your software is good. For the CRM software, it's very sticky business, as you would know. And what's also super interesting, right, is that it just looks so retardedly simple, right? But it's it's $1 million, $100 million company that's behind it. And I had actually like a main channel video, so this is just a rework of it, right? So, but what's really crazy is that these companies, right, I've already broken down, they make like 8,000, 10,000 USD to 50,000 USD on these B2B software services. That's how much an additional client is worth, which is why they can sell leads for $150 a pop, right? Because they convert at like, so the like lifetime to cost per lead is very, very high. So basically B2B software and services, right? You're selling to a sophisticated target segment, basically business owners. Your business owners are not going to buy a software based on freaking Facebook ads. They're not going to click on it and make an impulse decision. You would need like a consumer facing brand where you educate them, right? You have different blogs, you gain their trust. It needs to be a name that they recognize. Tech.co, right? Very big name. So that's how they monetize it, essentially. That's what we call a comparison site. I'm building my own one out in the gold IRA vertical, because for each acquired customer, I can get paid like $5,000 to $8,000 on a revenue share. But like I'll make a video on that later. But specifically, they have a bunch of those. You can just like, I'm not gonna go through all of them. Very niche stuff like hearing aid, solar, SaaS tools, but very high value verticals, because they're all of these companies. What they have in common is selling to business owners, bitches that have money, right? So that's how they can sell the leads for that high of a price. And this is pounds, so that's $150, $200, it's $100, right? So pounds is still a bit different. Now here's basically what a breakdown of how much money they can get out of these leads, essentially, right? Just an estimation, so to say. And all of this breaks down to business owners, right, having trust in these brands, filling out a form, and that information is basically monetized and captured and sold to large corporate companies with 50,000 to $5 million in ad spend. I'm talking about the biggest software companies on the planet, right? They're buying these leads from Marketing VF to monetize. And now, if you like, bear with me here, because we're just scratching the surface here. And I promise you, after this video, you're gonna be like big brain. You're gonna feel like this is a video that actually layered up like the private equity, the big money behind like the marketing companies. Not only like these small retainer agency, AI agencies, what the gurus push to like teenagers, and 20-year-olds, that's easier to understand, voice agents, but this is like the actual real life shit that's happening, right? Behind like marketing giants. And specifically, they have an affiliate network, right? Where basically they're there. So Marketing VF, right, under all of these brands, they're paying other like marketers like you and I like $50 a lead, and they're basically reselling that lead that they paid $50 for $100. So that's what basically an affiliate network is, and they have like a bunch of people doing like blog, media, website, whatever in their affiliate network, right? Because imagine, you can get it for $50 and sell it for $100. It's pure profit, right? So it makes so much worth it. And maybe, the marketing guy, like, I generate the lead for $20, and I sold them for $50, and I still made a profit. They have a bunch of brands, right? They have a high intent market audience, software people like us, business owners that need to make decisions ASAP, and that need to have like a customer relationship manager. It's a very, very big decision, but we're very high intent also to do our research, right? And specifically, what it does is it filters out the people based on the different qualification criteria. Like I showed you, they have like a bunch of questions they ask. So they match what you filled out on the form to companies basically on the back end. Like, for instance, if you want a software like Go High Level that has a lot of functionalities, right, then they basically sell your information and match you as a lead to uh Go High Level, right? A software that's the best fit. And they're working with like 10 to 20 big ass corporate software businesses, right? I'm talking about billion-dollar companies like GoDaddy, like HubSpot on the back end, right? And they're just selling the information to these big companies. And that's basically what it does. So based on which buttons and which buttons that the lead clicks, right, and which qualifications that they have, and they match the lead with the qualifications to the buyers on the back end. And all of this, right, now we get into some of the educational tech stuff that's also important, right? They basically have a trusted forms on the back end, and what that essentially is, it's like basically for the compliance, so you don't get sued, right? You need to make sure everything is compliant. You have a trusted form on the back end that basically makes a screen share of which buttons the lead clicked and how he clicked on this box that says I like basically say, I want you to contact me, SMS, email, and that's completely fine. So everything stays completely compliant. And you guys have to excuse me, my English is at like 50% today because it's 2 a.m. and I'm trying to like pump out a video, but I'm sure you understand. But the cost per qualified and cost per click, right? There are different models. So they either pay on a qualified lead, which is first name, last name, email, and phone number, a cost per click, right? So that's every click that they pay for, or a cost per acquisition. So that's like basically, okay, let's say the software company acquired a client for like basically a cost per acquisition is essentially, hey, right, you pay us $1,000 for every client that we get. So if the software company gets an additional client that signs up to their CRM software, they pay marketing VF $1,000, right? So those are the kind of big models that are within the pay-per-lead industry, so to say. Now, MVF, they also obviously have a client portal where their customers log into the portal and everything is like visible. How many leads did I get? How many leads converted into customers, right? Where is that lead coming from? And there's a bunch of like Claude level data analysis to make sure that they get the best quality leads at the lowest cost possible. And for their B2B clients, they have like software, telecoms, professional services, finance, like big money verticals, right? And for the B2C verticals, right, because obviously they have B2C and B2B, they have home improvement, energy, and a bunch of other stuff. And senior care is actually a very interesting vertical because the lifetime value of a client is so high, right? The lifetime value is incredibly long, right? So we're talking about like, not we're talking about like, like an elderly person moves into an elderly care home, pays them, like $20,000 a year, and they stay for 5 years, so it's $100,000 in revenue, maybe $50,000 profit, right? So high value verticals, because if the senior care home makes so much more from an additional customer, then you can charge them £100 for a lead. That's not a problem at all. And specifically, they are measuring their customer growth, right? Everything is data. It's like spreadsheets, math, do I get a dollar out? Like, do I make $2 from a dollar I put in? Right, everything is basically math and making sure the ads are better. The problem with usually like these kind of corporate brands, is they are like limited by the specific amount of they're just limited in a like a very big way. Because they cannot run like these brain rot ads that actually produce leads at a very cheap cost. They need to run pretty ads, right? And everybody doesn't like clicking on those. So that's why they have affiliates, right? Degenerate affiliates that run everything to make money, and they pay them out a specific price. And what's also really interesting, right, is that they basically, right, how now we go into like the like high level sauce, right? So if you're not interested in finance, you can just click off because we got the marketing part like explained basically. Now we go into the high level sauce. Okay, so now we go into the empire building shit because all it is, right? Marketing companies like paper lead companies are super sexy for private equity investors. So the people that essentially own this world, like BlackRock and a bunch of people you don't know, right? The people that buy up companies, they roll them up. That's what it's called. They basically make five small companies into big companies that's worth way more, right? And that's how they basically double their wealth. It's so unfair, but the world is like just works that way. If you have money, it's just easier to make money, right? Obviously, there are risks involved, but after this analysis, you will see that it's like the game is actually rigged for rich people because essentially what they did, right, is they bought a marketing VF, some I like unknown rich private equity, some rich unknown private equity company bought marketing VF. And how they bought this company is instead of paying like all cash, like $100 million, right? And they bought zero, like they loaned out nothing to buy it out. They would sell, like, let's pretend they sell marketing VF after 5 years for 140 million, right? They would make 40% return on cash invested. But scenario B, with debt, right? And this is how everybody does it because it's way less risk and way more reward. Because essentially they put down 37 million and they borrow 63 million, right? It's still 100 million. So basically they still pay 100 million to acquire MVF. Now the profit that MVF generates, like the 10 million profit, that gets paid to the debt, right? So they use the 10 million to cover the debt, which is the 60 million. And it's essentially after 5 years, if the company grows at 40%, it's worth 140 mil, right? They basically also profit $40 million and they repay the bank debt using the profits MVF has generated over the last few years, right? So let's say, right, they make 10 million. They don't need that profit, right? Because obviously the owner is incentivized in a different way that we'll discuss. So they use all of the profit to pay the bank essentially. And that's how private equity does it. They don't use their own money, they use a leveraged buyout. They use the bank's money to buy a company, which is so freaking smart. And they use the profit of the company to pay off the debt of the bank that bought MVF essentially, right? So if that was like kind of a brain dump, right? Just like take a look at this. It's super self-explanatory. And specifically, right, there's a bunch of other things why paper lead businesses such as MVF are so attractive for private equity because they have SEO obviously, right? They have expert markets, the stuff I just showed you, right? Those are sites that have gained a lot of trust by Google over the last 10 years and a lot of brand recognition. So people know tech.co, they trust tech.co. And I want to also discuss because a lot of YouTube channels, right, podcasts like 50, 100K followers in very, very B2B, like saturated spaces like software, right, tech, they also are bought by private equity because they can reach a lot of people within these YouTube channels, right? and basically leverage their trust to sell shit. Because let's say you're like an entrepreneur, you've been watching this channel for the last 5 years, you trust everything they say, right? Private equity comes along, buys up this YouTube channel, and just displays like some of their products or the other companies that they might have, and then you unconsciously buy into the companies. So it's like marketing, but empire building level like marketing shit, right? So we're not talking about small marketing like Facebook ads, yada yada. We're talking about crazy level of empire building marketing. And specifically, it's also really nice because it's a soft, like it's a data business, right? So there's not like a lot of stuff you need to pay, like factories or equipment, right? There's just like you need to pay off your employees and some software, and that's it. It's a very very clean business model, which is why private equity is rolling them up, right? They love pay per lead business models. And specifically, private equity likes all kinds of cash flow good businesses. They're buying up roofing companies, HVAC companies. We're like very unsexy business, but the demand will always be there 5 to 10 years, right? So they're combining all these small businesses into big groups. And similar with law firms. Law firms are very, very attractive businesses for like private equity because they have like predictable cash flow, right? They're a service-based business, and lawyers are always going to be in demand. And specifically, that's the same stuff with marketing, right? If you're like somebody, ambitious, like in their 20s who has a marketing business, that's something you might want to consider, because instead of slaving away doing retainer or any type of AI agency service-based business in marketing, you should actually figure out how to build your own brand and be like MVF, right? To be able to actually sell it for like a high valuation. Homebuddy, right? Check out on my main YouTube channel. I made a very beautiful analysis. They sold specifically for $140 million, right? They've sold for $140 million within 4 years of building their paper lead companies, which is insane. One of the largest marketing acquisitions in the world, by the way. And specifically, right, they obviously like wanted like MVF, they like the private equity investors, they're obviously smart, so they essentially saw like there's this company is not as lean as it could be, so they reduced headcount from 446 to 360 people, fired a bunch of people, right? And makes a huge difference because every person they pay on average like 74,000, like 80,000 USD in payroll, because London and UK is like hella expensive, right? And this is why essentially like I like you need to like get talent from like overseas in Pakistan where there's like 200 million people. And fair tip, run ads in Pakistan, right? Or any of the don't run ads in India, right? But Pakistanis are more trustworthy. Okay, that's a bit racist. I'm gonna cut that out. But specifically, they essentially, right, you reach like 1 million people with like $1,000 of ad spend and hire like a really good talent there. And what's also crazy is that you can basically, like if you're doing a great job, sell your company to private equity for like millions of dollars later down the line, because this is like for you guys that want to build legacy, that you want to take like this marketing seriously, not just to like survive, like have like a business and that you can live off of, but you're like ambitious and you want to like do some empire building level shit, right? And they also take into growth, and B2B is like growing, right? Home services growing, so that's what makes it also very attractive to private equity. And specifically, right, in the worst case, let's say freaking everything collapses, like basically AI SEO, when you go on Google, you have the AI like search term, ChatGPT, Google, that's where people are searching their stuff. So these comparison sites have no use because people are too lazy. Even a 50-year-old would rather go on ChatGPT than do their own research on tech.co, for instance, right? So that might kill the company. If that happens, basically they need to sell off all of their assets for cheap and sell the company off for cheap. But what's protecting them right now is they got like very, very good margins, right? They are diversified in different markets. They have like a very, very stable consumer segment. So basically, they're also growing at 8 to 19%. And what's also really freaking interesting is that they don't have, right? They don't really have like basically employees. They have freaking CEO, like CEO people, right? Like these CEO people, they don't care about profit. No, no, no. They care about growing the company, reaching their targets, right? Because then after, let's say, after like 4 or 5 years, if they reach their goal of 140 million dollars, right? These CEOs, like who's like the people that are operating the company on a day-to-day basis, they get paid out in F shares, right? So those are basically an incentive structure so that management gets a slice of the company once, but only if they hit their like goal of reaching 140 million dollars in valuation after 5 years, right? So the incentive is the same. It's not to get as much profit as possible, but like how to grow the company as aggressively as possible. So it's actually pretty freaking interesting, I'm not gonna lie. Because this is like my first time. I had business school for 3 years, and I like never nobody ever taught me this shit, and it's just like Google and Claude, right? And specifically, MVF's leadership is basically very focused on growing in the US segment, right? And I could probably like also sell leads to them, but I'm not in this legal vertical. I'm in the legal vertical, so it's a bit more different. And their company structure is basically there's a bunch of other companies. So private equity made two companies, right? A holding company that basically controls the intermediate holding company, and Lock Bitco. So Lock Bitco is the one that actually like went to the bank, like loaned out all of this money to buy Marketing VF. So it's like a borrowing company, right? So it's like a interesting structure that you have set up right here, so everything is pretty clean. And Marketing VF basically generates a profit and pays off this 60 million pound loan with their profits, essentially, right? So after 5 years, the debt is covered, and basically they're worth way more, and private equity makes a shit ton of money, right? So it's pretty crazy because like the like the people that own this world, they legit chill on a beach in like freaking, I don't know, Bali, right? And they just like make like money like that. It's like high level stuff. And in itself, basically, you can also like read this description. It's just like a description of how the structure works, and you can also take a look at their balance sheet, because a lot of the stuff, they don't have like a lot of IT, right? The software, it's just like worth $5 million. But their brand is worth a lot because people trust like tech.co, the comparison sites, right? They have like 30 mil in cash, right? And specifically, a lot of these companies have been built over like 15 years and 20 years. But now with AI, right, some of the legal companies, they've grown to a similar size, such as MVF, in like 5 years. Right, because like legal in the US or UK is like insane. And if you want to learn more about that, I'm a small creator, so just message me. And specifically, what's also crazy is that you can take a look at a bunch of these numbers, but they actually make like 400K per single employee, which is really good, right? Their EBITDA is actually like not that great. It's like 15%, but obviously they're growing and investing everything back in, so it doesn't really make a difference. Their cost per head, so they're paying each employee like 90,000 USD, which is a lot, right? That's actually a lot. They have $27 million in payroll, and specifically a bunch of other stuff. So this was the complete analysis of a high level marketing companies. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and I wish you a lovely day. I got a Telegram chat as well as the Skool community. Fuck, I need to include the CTA way sooner. I fucked up, guys, but I'll improve next time.